be discussing foreign nationals. This is a really big, hard-hitting piece of criteria that we personally see here at the Darlington. So if you see it every day, brilliant. You're going to get some granular insights into our criteria. If it is something that you have never come across before and it's an area of lending that you're really interested in, you are going to be really pleased that you joined us today. Now, we do have lots of questions that we've received prior to the session, so we're hopefully going to get through all of those between me and my good colleague that I'll introduce shortly. But if you do have any questions as we go along, please use the Q&A and the chat facility, and we will try our best to get through everything. If we don't worry, we will be getting in touch with you afterwards to let you know. Now, a little bit of introductions. Who am I? Well, if you haven't met me before, I'm James Travers. I'm your digital BDM here at the Darlington, and I'm going to be your host today in this very first webinar. And I'm going to be joined by my esteemed colleague, friend, head of intermediary distribution, possibly brother. We don't know. We're going to need to kind of find that out probably in a few weeks and months. Mr. Chris Blewett.
Thanks, James. I mean, brilliant. We've got, 93 people registered, which is absolutely phenomenal for the first one. Obviously, a huge topic. Great introduction as well. Quite interesting on the registration link. Our bios, James, very impressed by you, mate. I think I need to sort you out a pay rise, or maybe somebody in marketing needs a pay rise. Apparently, I'm a 10-year weathered industry expert who leads change.
It is literally how you talk as well. That's how it's wrote, is how you talk. Yeah, it is brilliant.
So it is, isn't it? Yeah, it sounds really good. I think this is a really good topic. I know it's the first one that we've done. It's a huge, I don't know, we're kind of going to talk through it, but it is a huge industry swing that we've seen probably last 6 to 12 months. So it'll be really, really good to kind of, I think, a little bit of CPD, tell people, a bit of a kind of who and what. And then really get into the nitty, kind of into the detail about how we can support cases and clients. So yeah, really excited for this one.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I think we'll kick it off, Chris. Now, I think we probably know every single day that the mortgage market is just changing. It's evolving so quickly in our industry, and anyone who's kind of tenured for even a few years will see the changes. That vanilla client is a little bit like a unicorn for us in our world. They're out there. We know they are, but there is cohorts of lending that are a little bit more niche, but they don't need to be scary. Now, foreign nationals is definitely really, really growing market. Chris, can you give us some insight, some stats around this cohort of lending?
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of it, James, as you say, and brokers, I'm assuming, seeing it as well. There was a kind of big shift post Brexit. So the UK has always been dependent on foreign nationals kind of propping up its workforce. But as we kind of went post Brexit, we went more to a visa scheme, as in actual desired skill sets and things like that. And there's been some really, really interesting stats out and kind of projected stats. So the ONS have said up to 2033, back from 2023, so 10 years, there'll be the best part of 4.9 million net migration. So that's the difference between people coming in the UK to work and the people leaving. So for every influencer who heads out to Dubai, there are more people coming into the UK to kind of fill the gaps. A lot of that, as we kind of know, is in health and social work. So there's a lot of health and social care visas out there at the moment. There's skill shortages in the NHS. There's skill shortages in care homes, in social work, in SEN services for children and adults. But there's also the kind of lesser known, so like things like IT consultants are really short, web developers are really short. I think at one point firefighters were on the list. So it is very much a kind of a growing by 4.9 million cohort of people who are economic migrants. They're coming to the UK and looking to put down roots. Last year, so up until the end of 2024, there was about 300,000 visas issued, work visas, of which 75,000 of those were the skilled worker type. So that's the IT consultant and so on. So you can see the big gap is in the kind of health and social care. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about other types of visas and things like that are available. But it is really interesting to see that kind of demographic going. It's really interesting to see that they're getting very well paid, high skilled jobs and are looking at putting down roots. They're not here for a short term, earn a bit of money, get a prestigious kind of recognition on their CV for working for a certain company and then moving abroad or moving back abroad. They're actually coming here to stay. They're bringing families with them and so on. Hence, a lot of kind of spousal visas are getting assigned at the same time as the skilled worker visa.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like that it's big numbers that we're playing with and that we're seeing. From kind of the insights that you see, how come they're expected to be so high? Is there that much shortage in our
So the answer is yes. It's a little bit of a political hot potato, and there's a white paper kicking around government at the moment around the lower, trying to choose my words really carefully here, the lower skilled workers that we're bringing in, and actually should we be training these people ourselves? The inverse of that was about a year ago when the university tuition fee cap was raised, and it went up by a negligible amount, about 10%. And you had the kind of collective university voice came out there and said, look, there was a skills gap in the UK. We're not funded effectively. We can't plug these gaps. We can't produce high quality trained individuals into the workplace as you require them, because we're not able to train high quality students. So there's some political pressure around net migration. There's an economy which is dependent on it, and then there's a funding / learning shortage that just isn't creating the homegrown. We're not rolling doctors off the production line. Anyone who uses the NHS, you can see there's waiting lists kind of through the roof. People aren't coming in at the rate that they're leaving at the top end. So until that balance is struck, we're an economy that's going to be dependent on foreign workers, but with the skills that we require, not the skills we don't require. And that's kind of what the visa system is doing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I suppose that leads quite nicely into the types of visas that are probably most common, and certainly 5 that we see, that we chat around the most. And I think you've hit the nail on the head with the kind of health and social care is definitely the biggest things that we see. So you originally would have had a tier 2 visa that covered many different elements, and that's now evolved into skilled worker visas and health and care work visas. They're probably 2 of the biggest ones that we see. And generally, there'll be some type of spousal visa or dependent visa that may be attached if their partner or significant other is coming as well. But there is other types of visas that we see in the market. B&O, a British National Overseas Visa, is quite popular, and that's generally from people who live in Hong Kong and they're coming to the UK to reside, set roots out. We also see UK ancestry visas, which is quite an interesting one. That's generally where there is a grandparent link, isn't there, Chris, with those types of visas. So they're, again, a really kind of common one that we see. The other visa is a global talent visa, which you'll probably recall used to be a tier 1 visa. That's generally people who are kind of tech entrepreneurs that there's a gap in the industry, and we kind of need those skills and insights from them. All of these visas generally are available up to 5 years. Now, after the 5 years, they can be extended, and after a set amount of time, indefinite leave to remain is something that can be, applied for. Now, you probably recall not too long ago that people with a visa would have got a biometric card. We've moved on from that, and it is now back to share codes, which you'll probably remember from the pre-unsettled status cases that you probably had post-Brexit. It's just nice and easy. Now you're going to get a share code that you're going to be able to provide to lenders. We'll be able to access the share code, and it will tell you exactly the type of visa that your clients are on. So if you do ever have those times where clients don't know exactly what visa they're on, that share code is going to be your passport to be able to identify it. And then you're going to be able to find your lenders that are going to tick the box to be able to support with that. Now, Chris, loads of visas there, loads of people come in here. What generally are you seeing with people staying? Are they here just for that short term? Are they here for that 3-year visa, 5-year visa? Thank you very much, I'm going back home. Or are they looking to stay a little bit longer?
So the answer is some are. Some are here for the kind of short term. Some of them are kind of picking up their skills as British people go abroad and do so, and that's fine. ONS data back to kind of late 23, early 24 suggested around 75% of the economic migrant visa population, it's a bit of a mouthful, actually apply successfully for an extension of some sort. And as a general rule, if they want to stay, if their employer still wants them to stay and they are still on the skill shortage list, those three things are tick, tick, tick. There's kind of no questions as long as they've kept their nose clean while they've been in the UK. So there's a huge swathe of them historically, of these economic migrants who are staying in the UK, so that they're coming here and working and then deciding to put down roots. If you kind of look into the data, so I don't want to kind of get too data driven and why we went into this market, but if you look at the data, and I did it this morning for the kind of the stats to make sense, in the last 90 days on a very, very well-known criteria system, there's been over 6,500 individual searches by brokers out there who are looking to place visa cases. So if that's one of 3 or 4 well-utilised systems, there's upwards of 24,000 that have been kind of looked at in the last 90 days. Average LTV is kind of in the mid 80%. Decent loan sizes as well. You know, they're kind of looking at borrowing about 250. But what is interesting is the average income is 66k. So you know, you kind of put your risk layering hat on and go, actually, these are pretty good cases that we should be bringing in. Yes, there's the migrant risk, but everything else stacks up brilliantly. So there's a lot of them coming into the UK. There's a lot of them looking like they're going to stay. There's certainly a lot of them at the moment looking to buy. Certainly based on the last 90 days data, and then the case kind of stacks up really, really nicely from a lender point of view as well, based on the kind of the usual risk pillars. So yeah, huge untapped opportunity, I would probably say, because if that's 6,000 people searching, that's 6,000 people that don't know there's a home for them with a lender. So it'll be kind of interesting, I think, to see if those numbers continue to go up in terms of searches, or actually as awareness of the solutions, which is not many, but awareness of the solutions for this borrower cohort actually gets out there, and therefore people stop searching and just start placing.
Yeah, and I think we're definitely testament from when we started this journey really well 6 months ago, that people still thought we just lent in the northeast, never mind doing really interesting things with visas. But it's probably a good time to touch upon the criteria, granular stuff that we can support with if you are wanting to get into this area of lending, or if you're already in this area of lending and you think at 95% you don't have any options. Now, as I say, 6 months ago, we moved into supporting 95% lending, and we did a really good tweak with our foreign national criteria. So 5% deposit for foreign national who's here on a skilled worker visa, a skilled worker, and if they've brought their partner over on a dependent visa, we are able to support nationally. So we'll cover England, Wales, and Scotland with a 5% deposit. Now, we do have a little ceiling inside the M25 in London. We go to 80% LTV, but don't be too worried. There is 5% deposit options available there as well. Shared ownership, 5% deposit is totally fine inside London as well as out. And also, if you've got an affordable home, a discounted market purchase, you're not on a new build site, that is exactly the same. That is a 5% deposit that we can support with. But let me step foot outside the M25 and tell you a little bit more granular detail about our 5% deposits. Oh, I've just got a really good question about
I was going to say that
time in the UK.
That's where your first standout,
and that is literally,
that's the mic drop moment of our criteria, that question. So yeah, brilliant.
It is. So the question that just came through is minimum time in the UK. Some really good news on that is we do not have a minimum time in the UK. We credit search, we don't credit score. So I mean it when I say it, there isn't a minimum time in the UK. We've supported people who've been here for 3 months, for 6 months. You know, as long as they've got a bank account and we're able to find them on a credit search, we are fine. I'm getting a fantastic there, Chris, from unknown user.
Listen, my favourite user, if they're saying fantastic.
It is. So we got a question there about 90% for new build. Yes, that is correct. 90% for a new build case, unless you are looking at the own new scheme, we can do 5% deposits for them for foreign nationals as well. That's the only little bit of criteria that we can do 95%. Now, we also don't have a minimum income, which Chris was mentioning, that demographic of people who come here on skilled worker visas and health and social care. We want to help everybody. So we want to help everybody who comes here to support us in our economy, in our communities. So we don't have a minimum income. We're going to support people, at the lower end of the scale, all the way up to, neurosurgeon, brain surgeon. Now, with a 5% deposit, we require 2 years remaining on the visa. If we don't have 2 years remaining on the visa, it's not the end of the world. We do just then require a little bit more deposit. So when we get to 90% LTV, we don't need any minimum time remaining on that visa. And that 90% bracket is also when we generally see other visas that we accept. So we see ancestry visas and we see B&O visas. Now, deposit, always a question, and I think I saw deposit pop up there. It seems like there's things cropping up all over. But deposit, we can look at a deposit from overseas for these clients. There's a caveat. It's got to be theirs. It's got to be their savings in their account, and it needs to be in the UK for a month before we would be able to offer that case. So we are fine if you want the case fully underwritten before people transfer money. We're fine with that. If you are looking at a gift, we can do a gift, but it would need to be from a blood relative that resides in the UK, and that deposit be sourced here as well. Now, what we also consider, which isn't exclusively related to visas, but they do tend to go hand in hand, is when we've got people that have got variable income. So variable income, we've made some changes recently where we need less evidence to support different income streams, which is going to be perfect for the likes of nurses and doctors who have overtime, who have weekend work, shift allowances, all of those good bits that you see on the pay slips. We now only need 6 months evidence to utilise all of that income. So that's nurses, doctors, paramedics, other kind of key worker roles like firefighters, police, teachers are all included in that 6 months documentation. Now, what will you generally see with the likes of nurses and doctors? Well, I can imagine a lot of the time you're going to see a second job. You're going to see probably some bank work, maybe some locum work if you've got, professionals there. And our criteria is there to support. So all we need is 6 months evidence to be able to utilise all these different incomes. Now, with the more professional stuff, like bank work and locum work, we do like a history. We like a couple of years in the industry doing the role before they add that bank work in, which is totally fine if that's from another country. We're not bothered around that. And then, as I say, 6 months evidence and we'll utilise all of the income. The only thing to remember is it's got to be plausible, guys. You can't have someone doing night shift and day shift. They're not going to be able to do that for 25, 30 years. But 50, 60 hours, we're going to be comfortable with that. We're all in the mortgage industry, aren't we? That is a normal week for us. I get it.
Half week for some, mate. Half week for some.
Half week, yeah.
Depends
Our
if,
underwriters are doing twice as much, yeah.
Depends if lenders are pulling rates without giving anyone enough notice.
Yeah, exactly. Another area that will probably help you, and again, it isn't exclusively of foreign nationals, but it's income multiples. So income multiples, we've done a lot of work on, and we've amended our income stretches. So as a standard, we now look to do 5 times income. So that is inclusive of 5% deposit, shared ownership, discounted market purchase. As long as the affordability is there, we're going to support. And we do have a 6 times income stretch that is available up to 90% LTV. It is now open to first-time buyers and home movers. We have 2-year products and 5-year products. We're comfortable with people having multiple income streams. simply just needs to meet affordability. And it is all baked into our calculator. What does it mean in reality? Well, it means that you need to earn a little bit of money to see it. So we had a real case where we had two people earning 60k. They didn't have loads of commitments, you know, a little bit of a credit card, but nothing major. And they were able to get 5.6 times income multiple. So that was really, really good to demonstrate that it is there and it works. We can also look at self-employed for our 6 times income stretch, which I don't think many people are in that space, are they, Chris?
No, self-employed are still penalised as being complicated, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Because,
they are.
Yeah, frightening.
But for us, you know, we have an amount that we can do over 4.5 times, and we want to be there to support it. As long as the affordability is there, we're going to be really happy to support. Now, there's been loads of questions that came in, Chris, which I haven't quite managed to see all of them. I think I've caught some of them. Yeah, I think I've caught some of them. But what I'll do is I'll pop it back to you, Chris. I think probably could you give us a nice little kind of summary of everything we've gone over, and we'll try and get them questions.
Those questions, yeah. So I think you're right, mate. I think some questions you've answered kind of as you've gone, but we'll kind of replay them just for kind of clarity. So I'm not going to go over the stats again. It's a massive market and it's a boom market, and if people aren't paying attention to this market, they're missing out. These people need advice. They're not sure what to do. This is kind of where the power of the mortgage intermediary really comes into its own. In terms of the kind of criteria, as James has touched on, we can support up to 95% LTV as long as there's 2 years remaining on the visa. If they have less than that, then we can support up to 90% LTV. 95% is available on shared ownership. 95% is available on new builds via the Own New rate reducer, which gives them a rate, I think, of 4.19 at the moment, which is absolute madness. So if you're in new builds, fill your boots on that one. And it's available on your discount market values and things like that at 95 as well. Because these people are professionals by and large in terms of their income streams, we understand that you get guaranteed, non-guaranteed income in those industries. You know, my wife works in the NHS, and her pay slip isn't just salary, it's shift allowance, it's bank work, it's overtime allowance, it's deductions for car parks, which and things like that, which are bizarre. But we're kind of super comfortable that that's just how their work works. So if you're needing a lender that can use, outside of the skilled worker visa, I suppose, if you need a lender that can use all of the variable income streams that these people just get for doing their day job, then we're that lender, full stop. Up to 5 times LTR, you covered that off, which was good. 95% LTV. Up to 6 is available at 90% LTV. The affordability calculator will work up to 6 and up to those limits as well. So if you put it in there on the website or via L&G's Ignite, because they host it on there as well, you will get the accurate amount based on either the LTV, the LTI, LTV, or the affordability. So it doesn't kind of go, oh, we haven't capped one or the other. It kind of can figure out the two. And then one thing you did cover off as well, which was definitely a question, was around deposit from abroad. So if it is the client's funds, absolutely we can use it. We just need it in the UK for a month. So that can be their own savings. That could be sale of a property and the equity. What we are not able to use, however, would be foreign gifted deposit. It's kind of really into the weeds, but just for clarity, because we're a building society, we don't have our own clearing bank. Therefore, we can't do our own anti-money laundering checks to satisfy ourselves when the deposit comes outside the UK, because it never actually sits in something that we can kind of look at. A bit technical, a bit naff, if I'm honest with you, but it's just one of the joys of being a building society that we just don't have our own clearing bank.
Yeah, so, I think that was one of the questions that went into a little bit more detail about a gift from a relative in the UK about the funds being sourced in the UK. So again, we wouldn't be able to accept kind of a gift from a gift. You know, if Mum's in the UK and she transferred funds from abroad, again, that wouldn't be something we'd be comfortable with.
Yeah. One of the questions was all types of visa we accept. So the ones that James kind of covered off are the main ones that we see. So skilled worker visa, formerly tier 2, that's now split into skilled worker and health and social work visa, BNO visa, ancestral visa, and then your global talent visa. There also is a question, which is a really good one, around spousal visas. So we are absolutely fine with spousal visas. We will use their income as well, 100% of it, no kind of questions. But they do need to be on there with the person who has got the visa I've just listed, so the skilled worker or the health and social care and so on.
Or a UK national. Yeah,
or a UK national.
UK
yeah, good
national,
shout.
couldn't it? Yeah.
But we wouldn't take an application for somebody who was on a spousal or a family visa independent, because again, it's just in the technicality, but their rights to stay in the UK are linked to the person who isn't going on the mortgage. So it just kind of gives us that. Question around any limitation on property location. England, Scotland, and Wales. James, I think you covered off the M25 nicely. 80% if it's a second-hand property. Obviously, we can kind of support in a slightly different way on shared ownership and discount market values. Question around no minimum stay and visa expiry. So yes, we covered that off. No minimum time in the UK. I think I always kind of apply the rule that just no probationary period. We just need to make sure they've got kind of a permanent job. So 3 months is kind of the magic number. And visa expiry, I know I've said it a couple of times, but 95% LTV, 2%, 2 years left. Going on next question here. 2 years left, 90% LTV, no minimum time left. Question, James, you can answer this one, mate. How about 5% gifted deposit from the builder and 5% from the client?
Oof, was that from Sanjay?
It is, yeah. It's a good question.
Yeah, Sanjay, thumbs up. Yeah, we're totally fine with that. Yeah, that's fine for us to be able to accept.
Yeah, 5 and 5 is fine. No dramas with that at all.
Fine. There's a question about right to buys that I've just seen. Yeah, so a right to buy is fine for us. We take 100% of the discount. We prefer houses. That's generally our bread and butter that we're able to support with. But we do see the odd flat. The key bit for flats for us is it needs to be in prime central London, no more than 4 stories. We don't like deck access. If you've seen the building on the bill, the bad guys getting chased around it, then they're not the ones for us.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
They're not the ones for us. Yeah.
One around second jobs. I'll pick that one up. Really good question. So we're fine with second jobs. James kind of touched on that in feasibility. Some people, and I'm going to kind of branch out a little bit. Some lenders look at professionals who have another job within the profession as a second job. So you could have, I'll say, a midwife who works 15 hours but then does 30 hours bank work. That's not a second job. That's just them kind of carving themselves up. Equally, if all their income is from that bank work, we don't treat that as 0 hours, because that it isn't. There's a fundamental difference between working in Sports Direct and not knowing what your shift is next week to I'm logging on a Sunday and I've said what shifts I'm going to work because that suits my lifestyle. So if you do have anybody bank work or locum work, we treat that as just 6 months. We don't treat it as self-employed. We don't treat it as 0 hours. We treat it as employed. We just need 6 months. Evidence. Both applicants require work visa. We've covered that off, so you can have one on a work visa, one on a spousal visa. Question from Stephen, can you provide more details on a policy for foreign nationals inside the M25? I think we've covered that one off, but we've got a follow-up email at the end so we can do that. Affordability level, these are coming in as quick as I'm getting to them. Gifted deposit source here, you've got that. Will you accept dependent only? We've done that one. We do consider self-employed for higher LTIs.
Oh, I've got a limited company director here. Do we use SA302s or accounts? So for limited company directors, 25% or more shareholding, we use their percent of net profit after tax as well as their director's remuneration.
Yeah, good shout. There's one just around if they've got less than 2 years, will we take confirmation it's being extended? No is the very quick answer to that one. Yeah, it's not. I don't want to kind of go through how I got this one through board and everything else, but I couldn't make them budge on that. If it's less than 2 years, unfortunately, it's just not one for us. Yes, we do right to buy. For variable income, we need a 6-month track record. Will we use the 6 or the 3 months for affordability? It tends to be the average over the 6, is the way I've kind of seen them done by underwriting on there. We're not going to ask necessarily for 6 months pay slips. What we're going to look at is effectively, if you think about the NHS ones, you get their salary should they be full-time, and you get their year to date. They'll just work on the gap between the two. They're fine with that. Change of employment status, limited company 1 year accounts, previous year sole trader. Yep, absolutely fine with that as long as it's the same business, which it's going to be. Skilled worker with a dependent spouse. Yeah, we're good with that. Limited companies, James, you've covered that one. Non-standard construction, if it's a modern methods, we can look at it. If we're talking like your kind of old steel prefab type stuff, not one for us. Interest is standard or any special rate for foreign nationality. I'm not too sure what that means, but if it's interest only, so these have their own kind of visa product, so it would go on one of them, whether it be interest only or repayment. yes, we can have landlord selling to tenant. We can look at using the equity from that. Is the underwriters same criteria as you say here? Yes, yeah. I'd be very disappointed if our underwriters weren't on the same hymn sheet as us. We talk to them very regularly. And then if you take the latest net profit after tax, 2 years, you've covered that one off, James. So we're kind of out of time a little bit, but just to touch on underwriting are absolutely on board kind of with this policy. They're not going to look at anything in there and say, oh, well, they've only been in the country 4 months. You know, with respect, we're talking about professionals here. We get them where it's, you know, we're talking about dentists who've only got 6-month track record of dentistry. There are no dentists walking the street trying to flog their trade and try and understand what's going on here. So we really do understand this market. We really understand the requirements, really understand the packaging information that's kind of out there. And we really understand how their work works. I know I've said that a couple of times, but we are super, super comfortable that these people are providing high-skilled labour to the UK, and the makeup of their income isn't always overly vanilla. And we get it. We absolutely get it. So I think that's been super successful. I've certainly enjoyed it.
I think that is absolutely a wrap for us, Chris. Thank you so much.
You know what's coming nicely? Could you please send a summary by email, as if that's to remind me to say what's going to happen at the end? So yes,
Eliana, I will do that for you. We will. You will
absolutely be getting an email summary. So Jenny Walton, who's on the call, and a huge thank you, Jenny, for organising this and pulling it together. Has all of your contact details, and we'll send them out. It may or may not go on socials. It may or may not go on YouTube. So if you see it, you know, like, subscribe, add your comments, so James and I can make it as influencers. That would be brilliant. And then just the final thing, keep an eye on our LinkedIn page. All of this information and more gets pushed out very, very regularly. There we have a kind of monthly news email roundup, which again, the amazing Jenny edits and sends out for us, which has all of these things on there, including the next webinars, which we will look to get done probably in September onwards. We'll give people August off, I think, soon. So between us two, James, we are not around much, are we?
We are not. No. Yeah. August is a bit of a quiet month for
me.
I party in Ibiza and Tenerife. So
good lad.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really can't wait for the next one. Thank you for your interaction, and we will all see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you all. Take care.